never off the table. It was just never really requested.
But you're saying that the concessions he's made and the things he has said have now made it, good enough for the Russian side to officially say, practically, let's do this.
This is actual real negotiations. This is the first time that the Ukrainian side has actually showed up ready to talk, because the demands from the Russian side were all the same. My Ukrainian colleague is talking about a lack of trust, but imagine how little trust there can be after 8 years of bombarding the Donbas region. Your colleague is there. She's probably seen the devastation on the ground. This has been done by the Ukrainian army, who was calling it an anti-terrorist operation. There is no trust possible after 8 years of lies and of breaking international treaties. However, the Ukrainian side, for the first time, actually showed up with a willingness to talk and willingness to negotiate, not with, large proclamations on national television, but with an actual agenda and with actual proposals.
So you're saying it's gone from nationalistic innuendo to actual substantive points being discussed across the table through those, quote-unquote official channels. Olga, same question to you. What do you think about that? Tatiana is right when she says Zelensky has been talking about this face-to-face meeting for a long time. Today, the Russian side has, picked up on that point and said, yes, this meeting can happen if there is an initial peace treaty. Do you see that as a possibility? Because as this war rolls on, and you are in Ukraine, so you know this best, Olga, that there is an increasing sense from the outside that maybe a meeting between Putin and Zelensky, a summit between these two leaders, can be the kind of icing on a real peace deal. Is that possible in your view?
Well, our president was talking about that. So Zelensky was talking about that from the very beginning. I guess he wasn't just talking, he was trying to do this through the official channels.
So not just messaging. Okay.
Not just messaging. Zelensky was trying to call on the very first day of the full-scale invasion that the Russians started. We had this information. So look, I guess the Russian side now is ready to talk because they felt the pain of sanctions. They understood that they are not able to take Ukraine as much as they wanted to. We've seen, we had evidence of the awards which were possible for the taking of Kyiv, for the taking of Lviv. We've heard all this. We've heard about their desire to take Ukraine in 3 days, in 4 days. Just let me speak by the end. Okay?
Yes.
So I guess this is the main point is that Russia now feels not ready enough to do what they wanted enough. So they want to talk. And that is why they're ready to talk. Also, we hear about sanctions and we see that they are working already. So we've heard from Russians how they feel what is going on. And I guess the Russian oligarchs are also feeling those sanctions on themselves, and they will be only worse. Now Russia will have to pay reparations for what they've done here in Ukraine. And it was not like when we speak about the violation of international treaties, yes, this was Russia which did it with the annexation of Crimea, and it was illegal. And you have to remember that. And if, and now my colleague is speaking about Donetsk. So please just, in case, compare Donetsk to Mariupol. Donetsk for 8 years, if you say so, that this was Ukraine, and to Mariupol for 1 month. How Russian army just devastated the city. There's nothing of that city left. And Donbass is just saying, because, and we have evidences of 3,000 to 4,000 Russian soldiers which died because of being in the territory of Donbass through these 8 years. So these all information is available. And why we once more coming back to that? Russia started it in 2014. It tried to continue it till now. And what?
All right.
Now they feel they can't do it enough. They don't have enough money. They are now ready to talk. That's all.
My last point, and Tatiana, you can respond to some of the things that Olga has thrown at you, which is that the sanctions have begun to hurt, and that's the reason why there is this course correction, even though it's a pretty dramatic course correction, if you ask me, that, all of these factors have forced Russia to, course correct offer this peace deal. The economic sanctions have begun to hurt. Reality has begun to bite. And that's the reason why all of this is on the table. Spend less time answering that, but more time on my question, which is that what will this final peace deal look like? You know, the end game to all of this, what will it look like in your view? Tatiana.
Shiv, I'm terribly sorry because, well, I'm not quite sure how I feel about, you know, the Ukrainian journalism right now, because this is literally the most, I'm not even going to justify this with an answer, because I've heard this, you know, it's fantasy land. That's what they're talking about. You know, the plight of the Ukrainian people and the hurt of the sanctions. We don't have, you know, lines outside our stores, but Europe does. And Europeans are already feeling the pressure from their own sanctions. So, I mean, we can go on about this for years, probably, because unfortunately our Ukrainian colleagues are just repeating, you know, this pile of, you know, the propaganda that has been coming out of Washington, and it's, you know, it's pointless. In terms of the deal, I think that's, I mean, this is the key point here. We can talk about, you know, Russia feeling whatever kind of pressure, but it is Ukraine that is finally coming up with concessions and actually responding to the demands that Moscow made from day one. That means denazification, neutral status. So that means no nukes, no bioweapons, no anything that makes it a threat for Russia.
Okay.
That means no NATO, and that means leave the people of Donbass and of Crimea, for that matter, live in peace. Crimea is never coming back to Ukraine. It has been done according to the letter of international law, but I'm afraid my colleague still does not know that and hasn't read the, you know, according documents. It's understandable. They've been fed this misinformation for 8 years.
Okay.
I literally grew up in Crimea, so, I mean, I've never met a Ukrainian-speaking person there, nor will I ever, probably, because it has been Russian land for, you know, since it was actually became to life. So the end deal, I'm afraid, will have to be exactly that. No Nazi formations, the agreement to Russian terms. That's about it.
Do you, okay, so fine, I'm going to give the final minute to Olga in that case. Olga, you know, we've been back and forth for 34 days on many of these issues. Many of these issues have not changed. The one thing that has changed today that's, you know, given a lot of people a lot of hope. I sense your skepticism and your cynicism about the assurances by Russia. You're saying that these assurances need to come from the outside, not from Russia, because you don't trust Putin. But I'm asking you, with the words that have come out from Istanbul today, do you see peace on the horizon? Or do you think this is going to be an extended conflict that's going to go on for many, many months, if not longer? Olga.
Look, just one moment, I need to clarify a few things. I'm very, well, when my Russian colleague says about denazification in Ukraine, it's very difficult to speak about this when we have the Jewish president, of course, and this is kind of fantasy speaking, what she told just right now. I can just repeat what she was talking about. Well, living besides Russia will never be for us, the Russia which it is now, will never be for Ukraine, neither for Ukraine nor for Eastern European countries where Russia still sees its imperialist visions on, will never be safe and never be okay without any guarantees. So we need to have really strong security guarantees. These guarantees could be provided for us, in my opinion, only by NATO.
Okay.
If not, these should be, and by the way, before the war, these were the majority of Ukrainians who also said so. We had a poll just, I guess, a week before the start of full-scale invasion, where 60% of Ukrainians said that we need to enter NATO. So this is the point. If not NATO, then how should those guarantees look like? We need to speak about that.
I'm tempted to ask just this one final question to you, Tatiana. How long is Russia prepared to continue this operation? There was a sense, it was never official, but there was this sense in the beginning that this was going to be a blitzkrieg operation. It was going to, end in 4 or 5 days. There would be total domination. It's day 34. It's day 34. I mean, how long, is Russia willing to conduct this operation?
Shiv, I don't quite understand where the blitzkrieg point came from, because again, a blitzkrieg operation means tens, hundreds of thousands of civilian casualties. Would have been possible, but I mean, that would have made it a war, wouldn't it? It's a terrible idea to even entertain it.
There are thousands of civilian casualties and damage in civilian areas.
Hundreds of thousands of, you do know what I'm talking about. That means bombing it to the ground and literally killing the majority of the civilian population. That's not what it was about, was it? So that would have been a blitzkrieg operation, but that was not, that was never the issue here. The issue here was destroying the Nazi formations. And I love the fact that we're still clinging to the fact that President Zelensky is a Jew. That is not an explanation, nor does it automatically absolve him and the Nazi battalions of all the crimes that were committed. I do believe that it will continue for as long as it takes. I mean, there is no sense of losing morale. If anything, the country has united against the, behind the president, I beg your pardon, greatly, especially in the sense of, the incredible media campaign that is going on outside of our country to try and paint every single Russian person as a villain.
Okay.
That doesn't work this way. It never works in the favor of the one doing the painting, sadly.
I'm gonna
I do believe it's going to as long as it takes for those conditions to, of course.
Those are ominous words, but on a day of some hope, even as journalists, we tend to be skeptical that nothing is ever that simple, especially in something as complicated as what's happening between Russia and Ukraine right now. As long as it takes, is perhaps a reality check phrase that I'll end this discussion with. Really appreciate the both of you joining me on this discussion and throwing light on what is the situation that is unfolding in front of our eyes. And it doesn't look like there's an end in sight, frankly, at this time. Thank you very much to Tatiana and Olga for joining me on this. Russian President Putin's ally and Chechen President and warlord Ramzan Kadyrov has arrived in Mariupol, one of the most devastated cities that's practically in Russian control now, where Chechen fighters have been fighting for the Russians. Kadyrov, who's known to be a brutal tyrant, reputed to be a brutal tyrant, has been accused of several human rights violations. Who is this dreaded Chechnyan leader, pro-Putin leader, who is in Mariupol fighting for the Russians? Take a look. We introduce you to Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov.
Говорит наш командующий, самый лучший командующий.
Ramzan Kadyrov, the man who rules Chechnya with an iron fist, handpicked by Vladimir Putin for the top job. Someone who wrestles crocodiles with bare hands. Known as Putin's attack dog, Kadyrov has landed in the near-fallen city of Mariupol, where the dreaded Chechen fighters continue their deadly assault. The Chechen warlord is likely to finalize the strategy for his fighters in Mariupol. Kadyrov portrays a macho image of himself, frequently posing with guns and military garb. He has never shied away from flaunting his opulent wealth. A known tyrant who stops at nothing. The Chechen president has been accused of a wide array of human rights violations under his rule. Kadyrov has been accused of ordering torture and extrajudicial killings, along with a string of assassinations of Russian journalists and human rights activists. A number of his Chechen critics who sought asylum abroad were attacked or killed even on foreign soil. Kadyrov imposes regression through violence in Chechnya, where he ordered women to be shot at with paintballs for not observing the Islamic dress code, even urging men to block their wives from using WhatsApp. The Chechen leader also backs polygamy and in the past has ordered purges against homosexuals, going on to claim there is no homosexual person in Chechnya. Ramzan Kadyrov is one of Kremlin's deadliest weapons, and Putin has now decided to unleash Kadyrov on Ukraine. Bureau Report, India Today.
We've got another ground report from Ukraine coming up on the other side. Images of what it was like on day 34. That's coming up next. Stay with India Today.
You are what?
Are masks a burden? Should masks be done away with? Is it doing little to prevent transmission since there is no transmission now? Well, almost none. That is an opinion, a controversial one albeit. Is it the time to do away with masks altogether, at least for the time being, and revise the guidelines when things change in terms of an increase in cases? The government of India says no. Not wearing masks should not be an option. But some experts believe there has to be a more granular and nuanced strategy.
We know that masks prevent from transmission of the COVID-19 virus or SARS-CoV-2 virus. When the transmission itself is low, what the mask would prevent? So we know that in India, where the number of COVID-19 cases, daily COVID-19 cases are 1 or 2 per million, the benefit of mask is really limited. And then you can optimize the benefit by providing or recommending masks to those populations which are at higher risk. So I reiterate that it is the time India should reconsider the mask-related guidelines. The individuals who are fully vaccinated in the healthy age group, they are in open space, or rather all population in the open outdoor space may not need to wear masks at the current low rate of transmission. But if there's a setting where there's a high transmission going on,
Mask itself to the community. I'm talking about the large segment of the population who have no interest or knowledge of science. And for them, disappearance of a mask equals the end of the pandemic, unfortunately. And that's the way the common man is going to look at it. They're going to say, okay, the government has said, okay, no more masks, which means the risk is over. So that can translate into extraordinary levels of high-risk behavior. And that can drive transmission.
Some experts say the fact that people are fed up of wearing the mask can't be ignored. Others say relaxing these rules may mislead. Also, many experts and parents say that with the current low level of SARS-CoV-2 transmission and based upon scientific and epidemiological evidence, the face mask mandates or the government recommendations on face masks for children at least between the age of 5 to 12 in India should be removed.
Masks may cut transmission, but they also have costs. So my child didn't go to school to in-person school for almost 2 years, and now, can't see anybody's face, or no one can see his smile. It's difficult for special needs kids to learn. It's difficult for young kids to, learn emotional skills without looking at facial cues. It's difficult for kids to learn to learn language, and also difficult for them to just make social connections if all of them are masked all the time.
As Russia declared war on Ukraine, as the world was plunged again into crisis, with the only Indian team in the real war zone.
This is Mariupol. You hear a series. Hear this sound.
I will show you a quick, so to say, bombshell room tour.
I can smell the gunpowder in the air.
And without pause, India Today totally dominates viewership and smashes the competition. When it's the world's biggest news story, there's only one gold standard of journalism. When it's the world's biggest news story, there's only one gold standard of journalism. And after so many delays during the pandemic, Top Gun is finally here. It's releasing in May. Maverick is back. Let's do this. The new trailer. Enjoy this.
Maverick Mitchell. Let me be perfectly blunt. You are not my first choice. You are here at the request of Admiral Kazansky, a.k.a. Iceman. He seems to think that you have something left to offer the Navy. What that is, I can't imagine.
With all due respect, sir, I'm not a teacher. I just want to manage expectations.
What the hell? Good morning, aviators. This is your captain speaking.
And we're off.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Sri Lanka is in the midst of a severe economic crisis. This is the country's worst economic crisis since it gained independence in the year 1948. The crisis actually started last year, in the year 2021. This when the Sri Lankan government declared an economic emergency. The country was facing rising food prices, a sinking currency and rapidly dropping forex reserves. And the situation has worsened since then. The country is heavily dependent on imports. Sri Lanka is significantly reliant on imported goods. Among other necessities, it imports fuel, food, paper, sugar, lentils, medications, and transportation equipment as well. The list is very long. Due to the lack of foreign cash, the country is now unable to import all of these commodities, many of them extremely essential. Tourism accounts for 10% of Sri Lanka's GDP. After a series of terrorist bombings in Colombo in 2019, tourism was already on the decline. The COVID-19 pandemic has aggravated this issue for Sri Lanka. In 2021, the Sri Lankan government decided to ban chemical fertilizers in order to achieve 100% organic agriculture. However, this decision impacted organic agriculture. The production was reduced by half. This then had a negative impact on the country's agricultural production, which then ended up having a negative impact on the country's agricultural economy and the economy overall. One of the major reasons for Sri Lanka's current situation is its massive foreign debt burden it owes to China. Sri Lanka owes over $5 billion in debt to China and is also paying an additional $1 billion loan to Beijing that it took in the year 2021. Apart from this, Sri Lanka also owes big money to India as well as Japan. With forex reserves dropping from over $7.5 billion in 2019 to around $2.8 billion in July 2021, Sri Lanka's foreign exchange supply was very, very badly hit. This meant that the amount of money that Sri Lankans have had to shell out to purchase the foreign exchange necessary to import goods increased, hence depreciating the value of the Sri Lankan rupee. Because of this economic nightmare, Sri Lanka has asked countries like China and India to step in and help out Sri Lanka.
Certa vez, uma cliente veio me procurar, porque tinha 8 anos que ela estava tentando engravidar e ela fez a encomenda de um bebezinho. E 2 meses depois ela engravidou naturalmente, depois de fazer inúmeros tratamentos, ela engravidou naturalmente. Por incrível que pareça, o bebezinho que eu fiz era idêntico ao bebê que nasceu.
You are watching India Today.
Can social media help in winning wars? Ukraine is gaining support from all over the world on social media. This has led to Russia organizing domestic propaganda against its own people. Russia's President Putin is leading the war against Ukraine. But if you peek behind the curtains, there are in fact 4 women who are leading Putin's propaganda war. Who are these women? Wars can't be fought just with arms and weapons. When Russia invaded Ukraine, many protests rose across St. Petersburg and Moscow in Russia. Many Russian protesters were arrested from the streets. After this, Russia started a domestic information campaign against its own people. Leading the propaganda war for Putin is Maria Zakharova. She is the Director of Information and Press Department at the Russian Foreign Ministry. Maria is known to be fierce with her responses. Before the Russian invasion, she actually asked the West, when is the next invasion? We have to plan our vacations. Russia has blocked the BBC's website, and Maria said it is just the beginning of the response to an information war unleashed by the West. She has many times accused Western journalists of information terrorism. The next woman lead of the Kremlin's propaganda war is Margarita Simonyan. She is the editor-in-chief of Russia Today. In fact, she is sanctioned by the EU for promoting Russian troops in Ukraine. She is a well-known figure in Russia and is always on top among influential women. A few days back, when Putin recognized Kremlin-backed regions in Ukraine as an independent state of Russia, she said, "I don't understand why there is no champagne in the studio." She says she is overwhelmed with joy over Russia's invasion. The third one leading Russia's information war is Maria Butina. She is a member of Duma, the Russian assembly with advisory or legislative functions. In 2018, the US convicted her of being a Russian spy. She pleaded guilty to her charges and was sentenced to prison for 18 months. She was released from prison after 9 months and was deported back to Russia. In 2021, Maria was elected to the State Duma as a member of United Russia. Next and final on the information war is Valentina Matvienko. Valentina is a Russian senator and the Speaker of the Upper House. Interestingly, Putin's supporter Valentina was born in western Ukraine. She was the first female leader of St. Petersburg. During an assembly address, she said, "Invasion is the only way to end this brotherly war." These 4 women are leading Russia's propaganda war. Meanwhile, the EU has banned Kremlin media, and social media giants like Facebook and Twitter have imposed regulations against the Russian information outlets. 12th standard board exams don't matter anymore. Yes, you heard that right, and students can't be happier. The government has announced a common entrance test across central universities to determine college admissions. The University Grants Commission, which maintains standards of higher education in Indian universities, introduced the Central Universities Common Entrance Test, abbreviated as CUCET. This test is now mandatory for undergraduates to take admission in any of the central universities in India.
UGC ने डिसाइड किया आगे एडमिशन्स के लिए 2022-23 एडमिशन्स यूजी एडमिशन्स के लिए सभी सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटीज में हम CUET को कंपलसरी किया. ये एग्जाम हम फर्स्ट वीक ऑफ जुलाई में कंडक्ट करेंगे और इसका एप्लीकेशन प्रोसेस अप्रैल फर्स्ट वीक में शुरू होगा.
The syllabus will be based on the CBSE Class 12 curriculum. There will be 27 domain-specific subjects from which students can choose up to 6. CUCET is a computerized exam. It will be held in online or CBT mode with multiple choice questions. It will at most be a 3-hour exam and will be held in 2 shifts. It will be conducted by the National Testing Agency in 13 different languages.
Students can write this computer-based test in their own language. हम 13 languages में ये टेस्ट को हम कंडक्ट करेंगे और इसमें 2 सेशंस होंगे. एक सेशन में लैंग्वेज पेपर लिखना है और 2 डोमेन स्पेसिफिक पेपर्स लिख सकते हैं और एक जनरल पेपर भी लिख सकते हैं चाहिए तो. और दूसरा सेशन में 4 डोमेन पेपर्स को लिख सकते हैं और एक फॉरेन लैंग्वेजेस को भी लिख सकते हैं.
Class 12 marks will not help you get admissions in college, but Class 12 marks will be used as an eligibility criterion. The candidates must have cleared Class 12 to appear for CUCET. That's all.
You are watching India Today.
Specialist, co-presented by JK Panchergard Tire. अब हवा नहीं निकलेगी. Co-presented by Fujitsu General, the Extreme Machine. Powered by Greenply, India's first zero-emission plywood. In association with Kia Carens. It's from a different world.
Good evening. You're watching News Today. I am Preeti Chaudhary. Our top focus, the ban on Muslim traders across the temples in Karnataka is only but spreading, further deepening the communal fault lines, especially that have come to the fore in the last few months. We're going to get you the latest. That's our top debate. But first up, let me take you through the headlines. Russia claims big breakthrough in talks with Ukraine, agrees to reduce hostilities in Kiev and Chernihiv. Moscow's negotiator says Putin and Zelensky direct talks possible if initial peace treaty finalized. Outrage over Muslim traders' temple fair ban in Karnataka intensifies activists' right to governor and the chief minister, calling ban shameful bid to create hatred. BJP divided over the move. A non-Hindu Bharatnatyam dancer barred from performing at Kerala temple. Vijayan government silent on religious bias. Congress MP Shashi Tharoor questions, where is Vasudeva Kutumba? Fuel prices hiked for the 7th time in 8 days. Petrol price per litre breaches the 115 rupee mark in Mumbai. Close to 5 rupee jump in just over a week's time. The Aam Aadmi Party versus BJP fight over Kashmiri Pandit escalates. Delhi government blames LG and the centre for opposing regularization of Kashmiri migrant teachers. BJP accuses Aam Aadmi Party of insulting Pandits. Mamata Banerjee calls for opposition unity against what she calls BJP's direct attack on democracy. Saffron Party snipes back, claims democracy being murdered under Didi in Bengal. Assam and Meghalaya sign agreement to resolve 50-year-old boundary dispute. Home Minister Amit Shah calls it a historic day. Tax heat on Hero Motocore. IT department sources say 1,000 crore rupees bogus expenses detected after raids. Company denies allegation as stock slides. And Will Smith apologizes to Chris Rock after slapping him at the Oscars. Says joke about his wife's medical condition was too much for him. Admits that his behavior was unwarranted, unacceptable. All right, viewers, top story this Tuesday evening. Amidst the steaming controversy over the hijab ban in Karnataka, Muslim vendors have been prohibited from operating stalls at temple fairs. All of this comes after right-wing activists forced the temple committees to exclude the Muslim community. While the Karnataka government has backed the ban, Congress says it will disrupt the communal harmony in the state. My colleague Nolan and Nagarjun filed this report.
The temple festival season has started in Karnataka. This time, the fairs that attract huge crowds and provides livelihoods to small traders are caught in a controversy. It started in Udupi, where the Hosa Marigudi temple banned Muslim traders from taking part in the fair. According to locals, right-wing activists forced the temple committee to exclude the Muslim community.
ಇವತ್ತು ನಡೆಯುತ್ತಿರುವಂತಹ ಜಾತ್ರಾ ಮಹೋತ್ಸವದಲ್ಲಿ ಹಿಂದೂಗಳು ಅಲ್ಲದವರಿಗೆ ಹಿಂದೂಯೇತರರಿಗೆ ವ್ಯಾಪಾರಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಅವಕಾಶ ನೀಡುವುದಿಲ್ಲ ಎಂಬುದನ್ನು ನಿರ್ಣಯವನ್ನು ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆ ನಿರ್ಣಯವನ್ನು ವಿಶ್ವ ಹಿಂದೂ ಪರಿಷತ್ ನಾವು ಸ್ವಾಗತವನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಯಾವುದೇ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೂ ಹಿಂದೂಯೇತರರಿಗೆ ತಮ್ಮ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದ ಸುತ್ತಮುತ್ತ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ವ್ಯಾಪಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಕೊಡಬಾರದು ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟವಾಗಿ ಕಾನೂನು ಇದೆ.
Soon many temples across the state started banning non-Hindus from temple fairs. Among them is the Mahalingeshwara temple in Puttur Taluk, where the annual fair is scheduled to start on April 20th. The temple authorities have banned non-Hindus from bidding in auction for stalls.
ಅದರ ಮೇಲೆ ಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂದಾಗ್ತಾರೆ ಅನ್ನೋಂಥದ್ದು ನೋಡಿ ನಾವು ಅಗತ್ಯ ಕ್ರಮನ ಕೈಗೊಳ್ಳಲಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅವರು ಅಕಸ್ಮಾತ್ ಏನಾದರೂ ಇದು ವೈಲೇಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇದು ನಮ್ಮ ನಿಯಮಗಳ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಥವಾ ನಮ್ಮ ಸೂಚನೆ ಅಲ್ಲ ಅಂತೇನಾದರೂ ನಮಗೆ ಕಂಪ್ಲೇಂಟ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರೆ ಆದರೆ ನಂತರ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನು ಲೀಗಲ್ ಒಪಿನಿಯನ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಏನು ಕಾನೂನು ಕ್ರಮ ತಗೋಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋಂಥದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಿರ್ಧರಿಸ್ತೀವಿ.
The Karnataka government has defended the ban while the opposition has questioned it.
ಹಿಜಾಬಿನ ತೀರ್ಪಿನ ನಂತರ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಆದೇಶದ ವಿರುದ್ಧ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರತಿಭಟನೆ ನಡೆಯಿತು. ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ಅಂಗಡಿಗಳನ್ನ ಬಂದ್ ಮಾಡಿಸಿ ಇಡೀ ರಾಜ್ಯದಾದ್ಯಂತ ಪ್ರತಿಭಟನೆ ನಡೆಯಿತು. ಈ ರೀತಿ ನಮಗೆ ನ್ಯಾಯಾಲಯ ಅಗತ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ, ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸಂವಿಧಾನ ಅಗತ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥ ಮನೋವೃತ್ತಿ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಇದನ್ನು ನೋಡಿ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಬೇರೆ ಜನರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಆಕ್ರೋಶ ನಿರ್ಮಾಣ ಆಗಿದೆ.
It's unfortunate that the UP culture is coming to Karnataka. These fairs are not happening now. It's been traditionally happening for close to a century. And it's unfortunate that the narratives of the government are now flowing into public, and the discrimination is happening in education, in economic activities, and society at large. I think we'll be taking this issue up.
The ruling BJP itself appears divided. Two lawmakers have questioned the state government's stand.
ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಕೊಡುವುದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಎಲ್ಲೇ ಬೇಕಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಲಿ, ನೀವು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಖರೀದಿ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಖರೀದಿ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ತಪ್ಪ. ಅದ ಸಂವಿಧಾನ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಅವಕಾಶ ಪೂರ ಅದ. ಹಿಂಗಾಗಿ
Now a group of activists have written to the governor and chief minister calling the ban on Muslim traders a shameful attempt to create hatred. They have urged the government to prevent the boycott. The BJP government under Basavaraj Bommai has taken a hard line on several issues in recent months. It has backed the hijab ban, first announced by a few colleges. It is planning to include the Bhagavad Gita in the school curriculum. The government is also set to tone down the glorification of Tipu Sultan and include his atrocities in the textbooks. This has made many wonder if BJP is planning to make strident Hindutva its calling card in the assembly elections next year. With Nolan Pinto and Nagarjun in Bengaluru, Bureau Report, India Today.
All right, viewers, now that the Karnataka government has defended the ban, but the government says, listen, we haven't implemented it or made it. What they are saying is that under the Hindu Religious Institutions and Charitable Endowments Department, this was a ban this was made in 2002. It's only been implemented now. But having said that, for 2 decades, this particular ban was not implemented. It's only been implemented now. The opposition, on the other hand, says that this directly violates the Constitution, Article 15(2) of the Indian Constitution. Let's take it now to our panelists this evening. Joining me is Arvind Narayan, President PUCL. Also, viewers, a lot of academics, a lot of other people from various walks of life have come together under the PUCL, written to the Chief Minister saying that this is only going to fan, communal fervor, which is rife, especially in the last couple of months following the hijab ban. Mr. Narayan is joining us. He's the President of PUCL. Also joining me in a short while will be Said Aslam, spokesperson JDS. We also have Giridhar Upadhyay, BJP spokesperson. Supriya Srinate, Congress spokesperson, is also with me. With the permission of our panelists, I'd like to begin with our BJP spokesperson. Mr. Upadhyay, you might say, that you have nothing to do with it. It came up in 2002. At that point of time, the Congress was in power, and this ban was formulated by the Hindu Religious Institutions and Charitable Endowments Department. You're only implementing it. For 2 decades, this was dormant. It wasn't implemented, and today, one by one, temple after temple is coming up with these huge hoardings, missives that are going out saying, do not give stalls to Muslims, especially during the time of temple fairs.
Yes, because all these has started after whatever happened after the hijab court verdict has come, when some people do not want to follow the constitution or do not want to follow the court ruling, and they say for them religion is more important than the constitution or India, then obviously the society has reacted to it. It is not BJP which has reacted. It is the alert Hindu society which has reacted to this. So from 2002, this law was amended by the Congress government. It is a 1997 Endowment Act which was amended in 2002, and this clause number 12 was included, saying that any land or any building which is surrounding a temple should not be leased to non-Hindus. Maybe from then till now, obviously, to maintain the harmony or something, they might have ignored it. But now what has happened? One section of the society is saying, for us, religion is more important than your constitution or your rule which was given by...
Mr. Upadhyay, may I just come in? I want to ask you 2 very quick questions. Number one, the clause that you're talking about talks about a building and land. These are stalls during temple fairs. These are temporary passes. So So that goes against with that clause you're talking about. Hear me out, sir. Hear my second question.
Yes,
You talk about, sir, hear my second question.
Also cannot be
Sir,
auctioned.
hear my second question. You talk about a certain section of Hindu people are asking for it. Forget about that. I want to ask you, what is the BJP saying? You're the lawmaker. I want to ask you, what is your line on it?
Our law is very clear. Any land around the temple, belonging to the temple, cannot be leased to the Hindus. Beyond this land,
to
if there is any controversy, or if nobody is not given the land, then law will come to the will take its own course, and those people who refuse beyond the temple land, if there is a controversy, and if somebody is trying to create problem, government will take action against them.
So you are completely fine that temple after temple, Shimoga, Udupi, Dakshina Kannada district, the biggest temples, which earlier on, there used to be communal harmony. A lot of Muslims would also put up stalls. You are quite against that?
As per the law, we are completely fine about it.
Sir, the law for 2 decades was not, I want to ask you again, the law for 2 decades wasn't implemented.
I told you, no, what happened after the hijab verdict changed the situation. The whole society is saying what is going on in this country.
Sir, what is the whole society?
The land, and they say for them their book is important, their religion is important. Obviously, the society is reacting to it. What
Sir,
can
I want to
BJP
ask
do
you,
for that?
Mr. Upadhyay, I want to ask you one very quick question. When you say the whole society, how are you taking ownership of the whole society? Sir, who's the whole society?
No, I am not taking the ownership of the whole society. You only said one after the other temple is doing this. Who is doing it? It is
so
a
you're
society
saying the whole
itself.
society
No,
wants it to happen. That's why it's been implemented.
They don't want it.
Sir, you
I'm
said
not
the whole.
owning the Hindu
Sir,
society.
you're saying the whole society wanted it. Therefore, this law, which wasn't implemented for 2 decades, is now implemented.
Hundreds of temples have not implemented. Who is implementing it? The people, no. The temple authority, the devotees, they have the right.
All right, okay. So they have done it and you are completely supporting it. Supriya Srinath, give me a minute. I ask for your patience just for about a minute.
Within the rule, we are going to support it. Within the rule.
Now who's saying it's not within the rule? I'll tell you who's saying that. And, give me a minute, Supriya Srinath. I know you wanted to come in for a rebuttal, but I just want to bring in for somebody who possibly knows the rules. Arvind Narayan is the president. He's a lawyer himself. He's from the PUCL. They've written to the chief minister and they've said this is out and out unconstitutional, violates Article 15(2) of the Indian Constitution. Mr. Narayan, why do you say that?
I'd make 2 points. Firstly, the entire question of the quotation of the rule itself is an instrumentalization of a particular rule to serve a completely wrong purpose. It's illegal and unconstitutional. By illegal, I mean, if you read that rule carefully, it prohibits the lease of property. As you rightly indicated, what you're talking about in this case are small traders who are going there who are asking for, at best, a license. They're not asking for a lease. Lease is about a permanent transfer of interest in property, and that is not what we're talking about. In fact, there was a report about traders from the UP coming down and saying that, can we rent a stall over here? What is that? That's a question of a license. It's not a lease. So what you get from this is the mentality of the BJP. What they're doing is instrumentalizing a particular rule to put in place an unconstitutional framework. That's one point. The second point is a very similar rule is there in the Andhra Pradesh law. The Andhra Pradesh High Court upheld it. Supreme Court stayed it. And they particularly noted that discrimination on grounds of religion is not allowed. That is the legal position. So the point which the BJP is quoting, that there are very strong legal grounds, is completely false. It's very shaky legal grounds, even within the language of the rule which they're so fond of quoting. But I think the larger point, which they really need to understand, is we expect the Chief Minister of the state to not throw a rule at us, but to answer the question of how are they fulfilling their oath to protect and defend the Constitution of India. That is the oath which the Chief Minister has taken, that is the oath which the Law Minister has taken, and today they come before the state and they tell us that they are implementing a rule. And in the implementation of the rule, they have no concern for what they're sworn to uphold, which is the Constitution of India. And in particular, the provision they're doing great dishonor to and great disservice to is Article 15 of the Constitution, which basically says shall not discriminate on grounds of religion, caste, etc. And if I permit me, I'll make one last point, is the judgment which comes to my mind is S.R. Bommai versus Union of India, which upholds the fact that secularism is the basic structure of the Indian Constitution, by which you mean that the state does not discriminate against citizens on grounds of religion. And it's a shame. It's a shame that the BJP under Mr. Bommai is violating the judgment through and through.
All right. Okay, you know what I'm going to do is, before I cut across this to Supriya, appreciate the patience, is quote what Article 15 of the Constitution actually says. A lot of us are not very well versed with it, so I'm just going to put it right out. It says, and I read out, the state shall not discriminate against any citizen on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. Well, what it violates here is number one, religion. That the state has discriminated against any citizens on the ground of religion. This is what these intellectuals are saying. But there's a loophole in that as well, because it's not the state which is saying they are implementing this particular law. They are saying this is coming in from the Hindu Religious Institutes and Charitable Endowments Department. It came in 2002. They haven't made it. They're only implementing law. So that's where the loophole comes in.
Can I respond to that? It's a very important point you're raising.
Quickly, sir, quickly.
Article 15.2, which says no citizen shall discriminate against any person on grounds of religion, caste, etc.
Right.
And particularly talks about the fact that access to shops and economic shops without discrimination. And that comes in because Dr. Ambedkar was very conscious of the fact that discrimination by citizens is a crucial dimension in this country.
Right.
And the BJP quoting the fact that the Hindu society is upset and etc. is basically their grouping, which is implementing these forms of discriminatory action. So they need to take responsibility for the fact that you are the state.
May I just go now? I want to go to Supriya Shrinet. Supriya Shrinet, the BJP saying we are reading the writing on the wall, which very well could also be that you're a year away from election, but the fact this is what the society wants is what was said in this show.
There are 2 points that I want to make and 2 broad points. There's one legal point that I think the lawyer on our panel of the PUCL has rightly made, Mr. Nayan has rightly made that point, that this is a wrong reading of 3112 of the Hindu Religious Institutional Charitable Endowments Act 2002, which talks about immovable long leases. This is temporary stalls. This also does not just violate Article 15, it also violates Article 21, which is the rights to life and livelihood. That's the legal argument, and I'm sure lawyers on this panel will be better versed. There is something called morals, and there is something called constitutional judgment and constitutional spirit that has to be upheld. What is the BJP doing here? First the hijab ban, now this, Kerala, banning some non-Hindu from being on stage. The courts in India saying you can smile and make a hate speech. Somebody who does a sulli deal and a bully buy gets bail because he's young and he has an impressionable mind. What about the thousands of students who are still lying in jail for crimes that they haven't committed? That said, I want to ask a very basic political, social question. Where does this end? Because in Banaras, outside the Kashi Vishwanath, you've got people who are from another community catering to you. You climb Vaishno Devi, the people who are carrying you on their shoulders are Muslims. The Banarsi saris that you're putting on your deities are spun by Muslims. The Dashera, idol of goddess Durga, is made by Muslims. Ganesh Utsav is celebrated by both Hindus and Muslims. The idols are largely made by Muslims. Where do you stop this hatred? And at some stage, the society has to come up and say, this hatred has to stop. And I'm sorry to say the BJP government cannot look the other way, because this is not just a section of uninformed, ill-informed, hatred-spewing fringe that is doing this. This now has the endorsement of the government. And what is the government of Karnataka doing about this is the really big question. My head hangs in shame that in India, 75 years of our independence, we are violating the constitution left, right and center, and people can come here and say, because they did so on hijab, we are going to do this. Are you going to go with for an eye and a life for a life? Are you not going to uphold the constitution that you have sworn by? Because you are violating every aspect of the constitution, including the right to life and livelihood. And the larger point, Preeti, is can we divide our society beyond a point? Can this divisiveness not end? How far will we go? Today you're going to deny them a right to life and livelihood. Tomorrow you may. And what happens? I think the two legislators from the BJP who have revolted on the right grounds. We go to Muslim majority countries and work there. If they turn away people, are you willing to create jobs for them? We go to places like England and US and all over Europe, which are largely Christian dominated countries. What are you going to do? Are you going to create jobs for those people if they are turned away? I mean, we have to stop this divisiveness. This is madness. This is undemocratic and this is wrong. And I'm not saying these three words. The two BJP legislators have used these three words. Wrong, madness and undemocratic. This madness has to stop. And I wish the courts take cognizance because this in any case is on a weak wicket, a weak ground.
You know, I want to also bring in Syed Aslam. He is the spokesperson for the JDS. But, sir, you know, would you hold your peace for just about a minute? Because it's a 3-1. I need to go back to Mr. Upadhyay, who is violently shaking his head from the Bharatiya Janata Party. You know, Mr. Upadhyay, what Ms. Renate, she was quoting, was one of your own. A.H. Vishwanath, who's called this madness. And he himself has said that no god or religion preaches these kind of things. What is it that you're helping to implement? Is it because you have elections next year? That this whole Hindutva plus push right now, Bhagavad Gita in schools, anti-conversion law, hijab, you know, the list can go on. What's going on in Karnataka?
I just wanted to ask one question to the PUCL lawyer. He says this is whatever rule which has been put in that Endowment Act is wrong and against the Constitution. Where was he 2 decades? 2002, this law came into effect.
But, sir, it wasn't implemented.
When BJP government came,
sir, it wasn't implemented.
Suddenly, he
for
thought
sir, 1 second. Let's face it. It wasn't implemented.
These are stalls. Do you not understand the difference?
And the second thing is, nobody has banned hijab in Karnataka. Please don't mislead the people. Hijab is not banned in Karnataka.
Forget the hijab. Why are you denying people the right to life and livelihood? You have an answer for that?
Okay, 1 second. You know, if you're going to get into this, we're not going to hear anyone. Mr. Upadhyay, sir, may I please get Mr. Upadhyay back into this debate? Okay, Mr. Upadhyay, sir, hear the question. You asked a question to the PUCL president. The fact is, this law wasn't implemented. It was dormant. You implemented it. Therefore, these questions are being raised right now.
No, when people asked for it, it was implemented. People implemented on their own. It was not done before that. The temple board consists of neutral people who wanted to implement it now. And government has to support it if it is as per the Constitution and as per the Act.
Okay. All right. May I just, I know Syed Aslam, you're raising your hand very patiently.
All over the place.
Okay, Mr. Upadhyay, stay with me. Sir, can we all just let's just calm down a notch. Let's just calm down a notch and let's cut across right now to Syed Islam from the JDS. Syed Islam, the people wanted. It's not that the BJP one fine morning woke up and said, let's implement it in Shimoga, Udupi, and then we will go to Dakshina Karnataka district. The temples there decided to do this. They said, okay, if you want it, let's go for it. That's what the BJP says.
There is a managing committee of the temple.
Well, I want to tell my friend from the BJP, I want to tell him that Karnataka is a land of peace. Karnataka is the land of brotherhood. Karnataka is known for love, peace, and serenity. So now, since decades, people have been living with peace, harmony, and brotherhood. Karnataka is known. Bangalore is known as the Silicon City. Bangalore is known as the IT hub of India. Bangalore is known as the land of opportunities. But of late, we have seen that Karnataka is getting known for different reasons. The infamous reasons. There are
so let's not heckle. No. Can we just get the JDS spokesperson? No point heckling. We can't hear you. Nobody can. Go ahead. Mr. Aslam, go ahead.
There is a sporadic increase